to the Build Business Acumen podcast, where we deliver practical knowledge and powerful guidance. Here is your futuristic host, Nathaniel Schooler.
So today I'm interviewing Nadya Rousseau. She is a Los Angeles-based social entrepreneur, multimedia journalist, and founder of Entrepeneur Media, a purpose-forward marketing agency. In just over a year, Entrepeneur Media has helped over 140 companies worldwide achieve their business goals while also making a difference in the world. Now let's get into the show. Well, I'm very, very excited, as I usually am when I interview my guests. I was speaking to my godfather the other day, and he was just like, you keep saying the word excited, but I am generally. Yeah. So
another word.
Nadya, it's lovely to see you, and yeah, I'm really excited to hear about your journey, because you've built this social media business like really quickly, and I'm amazed actually.
I appreciate that. I'm also excited. Sorry, Godfather, we're going to use that word again. I'm very excited to be here talking with you about these issues and a little bit about my background, hopefully inspiring people to take, an action in their lives that they've been afraid to take for the last 3, 6 months, or even 12 months. Because that's what it's really all about at the end of the day, is taking action and not getting wrapped up in your head about all of the, should nots and could nots.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. It's kind of like an epidemic of, your friends, your family, they don't want to see you suffer. So they kind of just say, oh, no, you don't want to do that, because they know that there is going to be pain. If you're trying to achieve something big, right, there is torture. It is hard, and you've got to work really hard. Yeah. I know you're a fan of Gary V's. I'm not.
Yes.
I'm not hugely. I don't like the way he
going back and forth.
He swears too much, to be honest. I don't think there's any need for it. Occasionally I'll swear, but I think he's a bit over the top aggressive. I don't think there's any need for it personally, but
yeah, I mean, it definitely does veer on excessive. I think he's passionate. He's a passionate guy, but I think at the same time, we don't want to undercut the importance of good vocabulary. And of course, as an Englishman, I'm sure that's a definite concern.
Half English.
That's right. Half.
That's
half.
What my dad would say. Half.
You're half. Child.
No, my dad's actually he grew up and spent a lot of time in New York on Long Island. His dad had a factory. They had a factory with like 100 employees, and
wow,
yeah, it was quite exciting times back then. And yeah, all sorts of stories about the old days, and what went on in the neighborhood and stuff like that.
That's crazy. I love that. I love stories like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Kind of cycling back to our history and how people built things up back then, in many ways, is more impressive than how they do it today. And I think, a lot of people are awed and awe rather about all of the, new online innovations and new businesses that can be made online. But in many ways, we have it so much easier than people did, 20, 30, 40, and definitely 50 years ago. I mean, definitely for women and minorities. I mean, my God, especially.
Very much so, and that's a massive thing with all of the big tech companies right now. They just want it. What do they call it? I think they call it inclusion, don't they?
Inclusion and diversity, the necessity for having a diverse workforce. Yeah,
but it's really important. It's really important. Like just working or interviewing guys, you just miss out on having fun, because like females have different qualities, don't they? I suppose.
I mean, I think we all, like men and women, you can't argue that we biologically have different qualities. In some ways that does kind of bleed into how we might present or interact with other people. But, gender equality, I think the word equity is probably more appropriate than equality, but, we're all talk about equality and the importance of equality. But I think, like, I saw a really cool image of, gosh, what was it? I think it was a boy who was handicapped, and then it was, a black kid, and then maybe an Asian American kid. And they were just saying, like, equality, well, these, each child has something different that they're struggling with. So they're technically not all equal. So what we need is equity to be sure people are all treated fairly. So I think equity is even more important than equality.
Just reminds me of that guy. Have you seen him? No arms, no legs, no worries. That guy.
Yes.
That's just if anyone's listening to this and they haven't seen it, like, you just look him up on YouTube and it will just blow you away. I cried when I first saw it. It was just insane. It's just like, it's just too much. I mean, he can't walk. He's just got like a little flipper that he he'll hit a ball with, and he's just amazing. Like, it just blows my mind, that guy. Like, it's just, insane, isn't it, really? If you think how grateful you are for who you are. But online, there's this big thing on social with people who, they're really just living a fake existence. And I know we sort of talked about it a little bit a minute ago, but it's like, what's your take on that then?
Gosh, I have so many takes on that. And I think that there, is a lot of pressure right now to kind of appear as the best and the coolest and the most accomplished. But I mean, I think there's also importance, and maybe it's not really pressure, but to me, there should be more importance placed on the journey and the process of getting to your point of success. And at the end of the day, like, we should never strive to have one like end, like, we always need to be self-improving. So it's like, so what are you saying, guy, posing in front of Lamborghini with like hot chick beside you? Is this like your end game? Are you done now? Like, is this it? You've reached your like top point of life? It's like, what are you trying? It's just, and a lot of these people are renting cars and they're doing ads and stuff to like look like this. And then there's a lot of people out there that talk about the importance of, positioning yourself as being super successful and showing off your accomplishments. And I believe that you should talk about your accomplishments, but not in a way that it dilutes it, in my opinion, by showing off all of these ostentatious things.
Yeah, I think also it actually removes your human nature, your human side. And, that really creates a massive problem, because people just, they don't relate to you. Like, they'll just look at you and they'll be like, oh, look at that idiot. Like, he's just posing in his Lamborghini. Yeah. And they don't buy into you, because you've just removed your audience from your social media profiles just by being an idiot. Yeah.
I mean, I would say yes and no, because unfortunately, a lot of these people get a lot of follows and likes, especially there's a big thing with bro culture, especially. There's no way around it, where it's like, oh, if you're a dude and you have all of these different things and other guys are like, oh, wow, I want to be like him. Like, I want to have the nice car and like the hot chick, like Tai Lopez type of situations,
Right.
which is just, I can't really get down with that. I think it's super tacky. And, a lot of the times these people are coaches, or they have different programs going on about, how to get to the point where you're making so much money. But then it's like, what were you doing before that? Like, did you have a business, or did you do something to, lay the foundation for why you're teaching this? Because a lot of the times it's not the case. So it's like kind of masturbatory in that respect. It's like, oh, I'm coaching, but I've never done anything to lay the foundation for why I'm coaching. And I think that's why I like Gary Vee, because he has his agencies, had like done a lot of different jobs. He's worked for his family business and he scaled it up. It's not like he just woke up one day and like, I'm going to talk about the hustle culture, and I've never hustled in my life.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I think that there are many problems with all of this in a fundamental way. And it's from where I'm sitting, I watched a video probably 2 or 3 years ago of this girl, and she's probably in her 20s, early 20s, I'd say. And she's definitely depressed. Yeah. And she's got her phone and she's on Instagram, and she's she's got up and she's put her trainers on and she's running shoes. She's taken a picture of her feet and then she's posted it on Instagram, and then she's taken her shoes off, got back into bed, and then her whole day goes like this. I mean, it's an award-winning film. You've probably seen it, knowing you.
Wow.
And the whole thing is basically just depicting the fake life that's out there versus something that, you know, is actually a reality of depression that's caused by overuse of social media, overuse of endorphins that are, you know, basically filling your brain with feel-good hormones when you get a like and a comment and this and that, when actually if you just went out and had a conversation with someone and had a smile and a hug, yeah, you'd have better effect upon your happiness. Or a phone call, you know.
Exactly. And I always say that I think social media needs to be the impetus for, you know, forging deeper relationships in real life, or taking an action in real life, which is why I like to call my agency an impact-based marketing agency. We're very purpose forward. We require all of our influencers who signed to our influencer board to do one nonprofit campaign a year. So, and not just working on in the online space, raising awareness, but if they can do something in their real communities. Like one influencer that we're working with, her name is Hannah Alper. Shout out Hannah Alper. She has created this initiative where she's working with homeless people locally and getting a lot of brands to sponsor this initiative and sending product to gift to homeless people who are struggling on the streets. And she's 15 years old, and she's really using social media for good. And I think it's this younger generation, the Gen Z, who in many ways are more awake than millennials or X generation people. And of course, boomers, you know, they're not really in it at the same level that the earlier generations are in, or later generations.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, a friend of mine started this movement called You Matter. Her name's Angela Myers, and she started this movement, and it basically became something called Genius Hour in schools, right?
Wow.
Yeah, and it's massive. You know, it's absolutely massive. And there are 67,000 classrooms a week that do Genius Hour, and that's over 2 million children. Yeah,
that's fantastic.
So what she's basically done is she's seeded the next generation into, you know, actually making a difference, because like that's what's missing in everything. It's like this whole kind of lack of compassion and empathy that really is a big issue. You know, I mean, I'm trying to raise awareness around the homelessness thing. I'm talking to a charity who they have a QR code that goes around your neck on a lanyard, so people can actually scan the QR code and then donate money to the person on a weekly basis or monthly basis or whatever, or a one-off, right? But they can also find out about the person's background and, you know, why did they end up homeless? What happened to them? How were they displaced to end up in that position, etc., etc. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
So it's really cool. And they launched that in Oxford last year. It was like on the BBC and stuff. So I'm trying to get it launched in the city here. So I'm talking to the guy, I think next week. We're going to do a podcast about that very thing. And it's very difficult though to actually scale something like that with the processes and stuff, because you need to get someone to go out who's got the right personality. They need to wear this thing, and they need to explain what they're doing there. And I think probably they should have a backdrop with a pull-up backdrop thing, and that will help if the local councils will help them do that. And I think it needs to be social media for good, and that's the major issue that I have. I just see, I used to do social media. I've taught a few courses, I think for IBM and Microsoft and stuff like a few years ago. Yeah. And, and it just became evident for me that it was just taking up too much of my time. So I just went down the other way and started writing, and that became my passion. But like now I'm more into like podcasts. Yeah. So,
right.
what happens though when we're going to get this like chip in our head and go from there? Like,
that's scary. I mean, my fear is that it's going to make people even more desensitized. And I think that, like we've just said, is the major issue, is people's ability to empathize and have empathy is not the same, and not just like on a large scale with empathizing with people who are victim to um, major social issues like homelessness and racism and other things, but also just on like an intimate level, like not responding to someone for days on end because they're so self-involved and their communication is suffering, and there's just like all types of weird stuff that you notice even like on a small scale that to me reflects back on like not having enough empathy, you know. And to piggyback off what you're doing over in the UK, that's so cool. Next week I'm speaking on a panel at an event called Fashion Novation, which is happening during New York Fashion Week. And the panel is about raising awareness about the homeless epidemic in New York and LA. And it's called hashtag It Can Be Used. That's the whole like movement that we were spearheading between different influencers and celebrities, and why it's so important to talk about. And there was a time that I was homeless for like 2 weeks. So it's like, you know, this really does speak to home for me. I, you know, never was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I've had some sort of job since I was 14 years old.
yeah, but things happen, you know, and, you know, I've been very lucky that I've been looked after by my family and business contacts and friends and stuff, you know, and it's like,
Yeah.
things happen in people's lives. And sometimes you just feel so lonely that you can't go to anyone, you know, and it just becomes really, really difficult. But I'm afraid I've got to own up. I unsubscribed to the email about that because I just
about Fashion Novation?
yeah, because I was like, oh, okay, fair enough.
They're sending a lot of emails.
What?
They're sending a lot of emails.
And I was like, no, I'm not having that. And however, I love what you're doing with that, and I think it's brilliant. And I'd love to maybe introduce you to these guys in Oxford, see if we can get that QR code thing going on over there.
Yes.
System. I think that, you know, more of this kind of stuff is going to have to happen. And, you know, I mean, we're sort of looking at an ethical dilemma here. Yeah. And that dilemma really is actually, it's about how social media works. It's about who gets the payment. Yeah. In essence, this is what is at the core of this. Yeah. And there's a new platform called How Do that's out there, and it's a blockchain powered social platform. It's just about to launch, so I'll introduce you to one of the people involved, and he'll get you.
That'd be awesome. I've done a lot of work with crypto and blockchain types of clients, so
cool. So yeah, this is basically going to be 50% of the ad revenue will go to the influencer. Yeah, instead of no money or very little money, you know. So I think that's just going to be absolutely brilliant, and you'll be in control as well of your data on there. So I'll introduce you to the chap who's dealing with that. That'll be really cool.
Fantastic. Yeah.
But yeah, so in terms of like social media and content and this kind of stuff, like, what would you like if you were going to build someone's social profiles? Like, you'd start with like reviewing their goals, reviewing their business goals,
exactly,
and then reviewing their channels, right? And then you would see the results that they've been getting, the frequency of posting that they're doing, and the kind of content that they're putting out there. And then you would just say, right, okay, I think you need to change slightly what you're doing, and we need to be doing this for you instead of what you're doing now. And you would just, like, where would you go from there?
Quite often, it's definitely not a slight change. Sometimes they need a total overhaul.
Keep away from my Instagram.
No, like sometimes it's really a tragedy. But I mean, in the last year, my team and I, we've supported over 130 customers with Instagram growth and management. And a lot of that does involve kind of redoing their Instagram. Now, we don't always delete old content. A lot of the times people be like, oh, should we delete our old posts? And, it really depends. If it's a total mess
Yeah.
and the new posts are going to be more or less a complete rebrand, I'm going to say yes. But, oftentimes we're just going to kind of build off what they were doing before, even if it looks a lot different. But like you said, we always do begin with addressing their business objectives, usually for the next 6 months, because marketing strategies and what we're doing online and social media, it always has to align with those business goals. And if someone says my business goal is to have 10,000 followers, and that's not a business goal, that's a strategy that you're taking on social to help you get to conversion of whatever, X percent, and also raise your brand positioning. Because it's really two-tiered. On one side, we want to raise their brand authority with scaling up their audience. And on the other side, we want to drive conversion. And of course, it doesn't usually happen overnight, which I have to remind clients, particularly clients who are in a financial space or a very numbers driven space, and they're used to maybe Bing or Google search and that kind of advertising, which is a lot different than social, where you have to build a community.
Yeah.
But, especially ones who are doing it from scratch. So we're creating new profiles. We have to scale it up. It's not going to be overnight. And you're not going to see 100 leads from 100 followers. So,
Yeah. There's always been that sort of confusion around social. It's the problem that you face though is that you've inherited a really bad reputation from all of these awful companies and awful people who've pushed people to sign up to a contract perhaps for a year and it got them zero results and they said, and the problem is that they turn around, they say, well, you need to be everywhere, you need to be on Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, everywhere, right? And that's the major issue that I have with marketing agencies. Like since I've been doing my podcast, I've had so many people approach me or approach my guests, and say, we want you to write a book, or, we want you to launch some podcasts, expert talk. So I'm in the process now of creating literally a lot of content.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's great. It just feels amazing. But the thing is that I don't want to spend on someone managing my Instagram, and I don't want to increase anything because what I'm doing is working right now. I will look at it again in 6 months probably and say, right.
I will say Instagram and LinkedIn are probably the two biggest platforms for me in terms of lead generation.
Wow.
And finding relationships that are awesome and really do convert out, outside, even online. Facebook only recently have I, gotten more active on Facebook, because I had a bit of a resistance to getting active on Facebook because LinkedIn and Instagram are serving me so well.
Right.
And like you said, we cannot, absolutely not say one person or one client, one company should be ubiquitous on social media. You need to be very specific. Pinterest is not going to serve a financial broker. It just doesn't make sense. I'm sorry. Their target audience is not on Pinterest. You're not going to see a bunch of people on Wall Street pinning.
No.
What?
Yeah. Well, that goes back, doesn't it, to the research and really knowing who you're sort of doing business with.
Exactly.
And trusting them. It goes back to, know, like, and trust. And what I thought about that for quite a few years, and I thought, well, actually, you will know someone and you will trust them, but you might not like them. Yeah. Right.
That's very true.
But then you'll do business with them. But then as soon as another company comes along that you do know, you do like, and you do trust, you'll probably change. Yeah.
Yeah. I was dealing with that recently, where a company, they had a bad experience with the former agency, and they were pretty much like, oh my gosh, I'm just praying this is going to work out this time. And I'm like, I don't think prayers are necessary. because you're working with someone very reputable and you came to me and I've given you like numerous testimonials and case studies. And I think you just need to kind of let go of what happened in the past and move forward towards the future.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to move forward at all.
Well, exactly. I mean, so you guys are mainly business to consumer, right? B2C. Is that your major kind of influencer focus?
Both,
Both.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it really depends. I mean, we do work with a lot of companies that are, small businesses and targeting other businesses and even on Instagram, believe it or
Yeah.
not. But
Cool.
probably primarily business to consumer, but there are some B2B clients.
Yeah. It's really cool. It's not easy. It's not an easy space to work in, because there's so many companies out there. But the thing is, I think what I noticed about you guys is like you've actually you practice what you preach. Yeah. Like, you are social at the core of it. And that's the most important thing, like with B2B, it's more about like a targeted message. Like you've got something that you want to put in front of someone. It's super, super hyper laser targeted. It's a little bit more different. It's a little bit different to the B2C. Like I wouldn't even know where to start with B2C. Like no idea. Yeah. But what I'm doing with B2B seems to be working, so I'm just kind of just getting on with that really.
Keep it going. And I think, yeah, B2C in some ways is more challenging than B2B because there's more consumers than there, it's very oversaturated. You have to really be very strategic about targeting and understand how to grab your target audience in in a space that's full of other companies trying to do the same exact thing.
So let's talk about B2C. So with B2C, right? What's the kind of deal? Like how do you get a company to build a relationship with a consumer that is not in the real world? Because I come from a background of like the wine merchants, like a prestigious wine merchants. Yeah. So someone's going to walk into my shop and I'm going to say, oh, hello there. Have you come for anything in particular, etc. Right. So how do you market business to consumer?
Storytelling is a major part of it. If your brand that you're working with doesn't have a clear story, you're going to have to define it for them, because in this age, where it's very oversaturated, people are looking at information constantly, you have to have a way to grab their attention. So a story that's not just inspirational, but motivational, and obviously clearly defining how this company is solving a problem that the consumer has is super important. And sometimes, if it's a new startup, and a lot of startups, they are in many ways identifying problems that sometimes consumers don't know they have. And I think that can be really challenging, especially if the company themselves hasn't really thought too deeply about, wow, this isn't a problem that consumers realize they have. So you have to kind of define the problem for them through the power of story. And on Instagram, especially, being visually captivating and having a nice aesthetic feed while also telling that story and knowing how to target people is super important.
Right. That goes down to the kind of hashtags that you're using, the kind of images that you're using, the words that you're using, and the sort of story, right? That and it all feeds through, doesn't it? So you've got your image, and then you've got the text on the image, and then the logo, and then you feed it down into the text on the post, and then you've got the hashtags, like any other platform, right?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily like using a logo in every photo. Like, I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, it
Okay.
can't hurt occasionally, but I like to say that on Instagram, to really slay on Instagram, you have to work in a three-tiered system. And I think this three-tiered system can apply to all platforms, though, to be honest with you,
Okay.
because it starts with strategy. Then you need great content that's kind of in line with your strategy. And then you need to engage. You need to engage your audience. And it's kind of like, I love using this analogy, it's a little out there, but like if you're in real life and you're at a party and you see two people that kind of, I don't know, have some synergy with you and they're talking to each other, they're together, and you're like, oh, I think I could be friends with them, but they're together, they're already doing their own thing, they're not necessarily going to talk to you unless you make the first move. Or even like, at a bar, you see a girl you like, and you want to say, hey, like, what's up? Similarly, if you're on Instagram, even though like you might have similarities to your target audience, if you're not out there kind of like, I guess, combing for them and saying like, hey, or liking their content, they're not, you have to make the first move sometimes.
So you need to find the content and basically use the search within whatever platform you're using,
Right.
or whatever tool, whatever. If you've got a tool or you don't have a tool, you use the platform. Yeah. And
Exactly. Yeah.
you search for specific hashtags that represent the kind of business or customer that you're looking for, with the sort of interests that you're looking to target, right? So
Exactly.
if you were selling, I don't know, like shower gel, for example, yeah, you might want to target people who are into sport, yeah, if it's a specific sporty kind of shower gel. So you're going to go to their Instagram, the sporty people, and then if they're hashtagging gym, workout, blah, 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 you're going to try and track them down and then like their content in the hope that they come back to you and have a conversation with you.
And it goes one step further. If you're targeting a specific area, so you want to like be very, okay, geo-target with your hashtags, maybe like follow like, okay, so you're targeting in the UK and there's like a UK sports team that people who are sporty or liking are using the hashtag of. So you would use that hashtag or engage with it.
Right.
To lure those people back to you.
Right. So yeah, you're engaging with a hashtag that represents something to them, right? So the people who are sort of watching it are going to come to you. It's a bit like what I do with my podcast. Like I just, it's exactly the same with what I do with my podcast. I just target the specific show that I'm kind of recording and the hashtags roughly that sort of fit with that. And I make sure I include the podcast hashtag, because if people are looking for a podcast about social media marketing or branding or business, so I'll put those in there, So
exactly.
It's not really about how many times you're posting per day then. It's about engaging with people in the right places, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to have a strategy, but for sure, I always recommend posting at least once a day because, I mean, again, you're more likely if you're using the right hashtags, and there's definitely a ratio for hashtags as well. You want to have a certain number of hashtags to represent your brand, another number of hashtags to represent your industry, and then the other to represent your target audience. And so, of course, if you're posting compelling content, just like if you're doing so on Facebook or LinkedIn, and people find that content through the hashtag search that they're doing, much like Google search, and you're optimizing your website and you're doing your keyword research for your blogs, people are going to find you, more likely to find you. Like I use hashtag NYC business a lot because I like working with New York clients. When I use that hashtag, I've noticed a lot of my posts will come up to the very top. They'll become top posts because they get a lot of engagement. And then so people who are using hashtag NYC business and they search that hashtag, they'll see my content right there and then click. And so I've been getting a lot more like New York types of people liking my stuff and following me.
And that's because that hashtag is not as widely used as like hashtag USA or something, for example.
Exactly, like hashtag business. I mean, that's like all over the place. Hashtag NYC business might have like 20K posts or something like that.
Right,
So you
right.
want to oversaturate hashtags, at least not in the majority of what you're using, because people are not as likely to find you. So when people use hashtag like follow to follow or hashtag Instagood, I'm like, this is horrible. Like nothing's gonna happen.
But then it goes back to what you're doing on that platform and how you use it. I mean, for me as an individual, I just used Instagram as an individual. I connect it to my Facebook page because I'm a lazy poster. So I just post to Instagram, it shares to my Facebook page. I just use it in that way, right? But I don't post every day. I'm a bit sporadic. I'm not going to lie. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've been sporadic myself just because I'm so busy, working in and on the business. But granted, when I do post, I get more messages and more inquiries. So we have our business account. We have our Alter New Media Instagram. We get a lot of inquiries through there. And then, of course, I have my own Instagram account.
Very cool. So really, it's just about tying it all in with the marketing strategy, the sales development strategy, the people in the business. And if they can't keep up with the posting, then you guys step in and help them to get that right and do it for them. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, majority of our clients and customers don't post at all, and we don't want them to because they don't know what they're doing.
Hey, don't look at me like that.
You don't know what to do. But I mean, it really depends. Some of them want to kind of like get the guidance and they want to learn and be hands-on. Like I am launching a coaching program the end of February for people who are a little like, I want to do this. I want to create my strategy and I want to understand how to post myself. And they also might not have the budget for ongoing service. So that's appropriate for those people.
Right.
Otherwise, for the most part, people are like, okay, I want to do 2 posts a day. And we'll do 2 posts a day for our Instagram Rockstar premium service. It includes 2 posts a day and a strategy and all of the targeted engagement to grow their accounts. But others are like, I want to post. So then they have to follow the strategy while we're doing the engagement.
Right. The major problem is people just seem to think social media is free. And that's the major problem. And it isn't free. It's time consuming. And it takes a lot of time and effort to find the content. It takes ages. You either got to be a good photographer or at least have an idea of what you're going to take, right? Or you've got to have a stash of pictures. Like I've got about 7,000 pictures from like when I went around the world, like 12 years ago or something, yeah? And I was talking to this LA photographer. He's on one of the other episodes. He's a celebrity photographer, a really lovely guy, yeah? And he basically just said, you should just use them, and that'll just become your style, yeah?
Yeah,
so
I
I'm
agree.
so I'm sort of feeding those into my feed, as and when really. But I think really it's just getting organized. It's just because it's a resource thing. It's like I've got so many posts that are on my site that I want to take those posts and I want to share them. So in order for me to share them on Instagram, it creates an issue for me to share the links, you see, because that's my major problem with Instagram is the links. Yeah. So I would have to change a link every day on my profile potentially to make it easy for people, because that's the major issue I've got with Instagram is the links are not clickable within the feed. Yeah.
Yeah. So you definitely need to, for people who are doing like you're doing podcasts, how often do they come out? Like a week, weekly or bi-monthly?
4 times a week.
4 times a week. Wow.
I was doing 6. I'm up to 20.
Deep.
Yeah, I'll be up to 30 tomorrow.
That is intense. That's very impressive.
It's tiring.
I would say, obviously if you were doing 1 a week, then it would be like, okay, now I'm going to upload my link for the week and I'm going to kind of wrap all of my content around this particular podcast of the week. If you're doing that many, you would just, what you could do, I'm assuming you have your website, obviously, and you probably house it all there. So you could just direct people to your website.
Could do. But then it's down to the website, or you have to get a link, don't you? You've got to create some sort of bit.ly kind of
like a link tree type of situation. Yeah.
Yeah, but then people don't like these link shorteners. They apparently they will click less when you've got a link shortener than a real. This gets into the geeky territories. We're not going to.
Yeah, they do and they don't. Like I've kind of seen traffic and kind of looked at the difference between using a bit.ly link and using like a regular URL. And I think sometimes like the bit.ly link, it just looks cleaner and like it doesn't take up as much space in your bio.
Certainly on Instagram, it's much better to have a shortened link. I'm lucky. I get to use these IBM links.
What I will say is, as long as you can customize your link, like when I've used a bit.ly link, I always customize that.
Oh,
link.
yeah.
You don't want to just be like, all right, let's just make the bit.ly link and it's all these crazy characters like that.
But then it goes back to what you're doing and how you're actually posting, because for example, like if I'm on Twitter, like I use something called IFTTT, which I just love. Yeah. So I will set up a load of automations on there, and whatever your view of automation is, it certainly gets it more in people's faces. I think I can actually still send direct message campaigns if I want to.
That's interesting. Have you ever played with LinkedIn?
I'd much rather have a more targeted approach,
Yeah.
like on a
Do you use
sales
Sales
nav.
Navigator? I love.
Yeah, I used to. I've used it a few times. I've got a friend, I've got a colleague who's an expert at writing Boolean operators, yeah, like the search queries. And like, that's just like an artwork in itself, you know.
It is. Like when I've done research, like academic paper type of thing, I mean, you have to be really good with your Boolean stuff
Yeah.
to find the right content.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's so much out there. I think the problem is that people don't know where to look. They don't know where to find good content. And that's the biggest problem.
Right.
Is they think, because they don't know anything, they will go and look at a load of content, and that content is just designed to sell them stuff, and it doesn't educate them at all. And that's the biggest problem, is they need education, right?
Exactly. And that's another power of threes I tout, especially in terms of content. So it's like I have my 3-tier strategy for, Instagram, but again, can be applied to other platforms. And then I have my content strategy and working in the power of threes. So making sure your content is always at least 1/3 educational, 1/3 motivational or aspirational, and 1/3 promotional, because I see a lot of people, every single post is leading with like, sign up or buy my ebook. And it's just like every post, especially on Facebook. And it's just like, what is happening here? Like, this is tacky.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I need to revisit all of my social channels, really. It's just so time consuming. Everything's time consuming. And when you're creating a product, if your product is amazing and you tell a few people, then those people tell more people. I mean, that's in essence what all of this, from what I've been learning. I've interviewed so many people the last 2 or 3 years, and what it really comes down to is like that product that you're selling, whether you're a retailer or, business to business, it has to be the best product. And if it is, people are going to go and talk about it, and they're going to tell other people. And that's all throughout the journey, right? Like the customer journey from here over to there, they're going to tell people because it's a great product. Like that's right. It. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. I mean, you can't skimp on quality just because we're in an age where there's a lot of different people, and there's the ability to be fake, fake it till you make it, as they say. Well, I don't know about that strategy.
No, me either. You just got to work your ass off. It's very simple.
Yes, it's very straightforward. Hone your craft, work hard, and don't be an ass.
It's pretty simple, really.
Yes.
Well, thank you. You've been so generous with your time, Nadya. It's
sure, my pleasure.
It's been really fun, and I'm sure that we'll speak soon. I might make a few intros for you. I need to just have a think about who they're going to be. I've got some ideas. Let me just stop.
That would be great.
Oh, hold on. Where do people find you then?
So they can find me on Instagram at Nadya Rousseau. That's NADYAROUSSEAU. Or my company handle, Alter New Media. That's ALTERNEWMEDIA. And on Facebook, you can look me up. You can give me a follow, and maybe I'll give you a friend request back. We'll see about that. And then on LinkedIn, you can find me the same way. And my website is alternewmedia.com. I'm also on Fiverr Pro, which is the premium version of Fiverr. So the professionals have to be pre-vetted and approved by Fiverr to sell there at premium. So you can look me up there as well. I'm one of the most requested social media providers on the platform. So there you go.
That's cool. Very cool.
Thanks so much for listening. Please subscribe, and wherever you prefer, share with your friends. And if you enjoyed the show, drop us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen.